Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider. It's time for another edition of our Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. As you know, the Raiders have traded Darren Waller, and we go out to a person that, if you've heard me on radio and other places, she is one of my favorite human beings in the world. Forget that she's my colleague and she's awesome covering the Giants, but she's just a great person who I dearly love and adore. I always tell people I like to read writers that if I'm sitting at the same game as them, I learn something. And because I think I do a pretty good job of watching a game and getting insight. So I like to read people that I learn from something from. And I've never read something she's written that I didn't learn something. She is the queen of East Rutherford, New Jersey. She is the best beat writer covering the Giants. You can catch her at, of course, all Giants coverage or Giants country, excuse me. And you can catch her with her Locked On Giants podcast, the one and only. I feel like we're in the presence of royalty, the queen of Gotham, the great Patricia Traina. Hi, friend.
Hello. The check's in the mail, by the way, for that tremendous introduction.
I just genuinely really I love your work. As a dad, a girl dad, one of the things I've never liked is a lot of women in our business get marginalized. And I've always liked the fact you're the best and you haven't been marginalized. You just go out there and you kick everybody's butt. You work hard, you grind every day. To me, if you're your example to everybody, but every little girl that wants to get into this business, they should have your poster on the wall. You're the best at what you do.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. And I think the same way about you. I consider you a friend, a colleague. You are just tremendous, and I am always happy to talk to you, whether it be for business or just chit-chatting about life.
So I want to talk to you about the trade for Darren Waller. And I'm going to give you a perspective from the Raiders. I'd love for you to give us the New York perspective. I know the trade was for a third rounder, but I've yet to get confirmation if it's for this year or a later year. I think it's going to be for this year, but I don't know that yet. Do you happen to know at the time
Yeah,
of
it
this
is.
recording?
It is for this year. It's their second third round pick. The pick they got in the Kadarius Toney trade with the Chiefs.
Okay. So here is the deal with Darren Waller. Obviously, he was drafted by Baltimore, coming out of Georgia Tech, had substance abuse issues, got his life on track. The Raiders are playing a game against Baltimore. John Gruden sees him working. He's on the practice squad. Raiders sign him. He takes off, does great, all pro guy. The problem with Darren Waller is there's a couple of things. There was irritation by his fans, by his teammates, and some of the people in the organization that he would get injured, and many felt like he could have played and didn't, and it alienated him from some teammates and some in the organization. And the best ability is availability. So he gets a deal, but man, he's been injured a lot. Now, this is humorous to me. A couple of weeks ago at the NFL Combine, the coach and general manager let it slip. He's getting married, and people close to him did not appreciate that. You can figure out who that would be close to him, but didn't appreciate it. But it came down to ultimately his ability didn't match availability. So they get rid of him and bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo. Your thoughts on what you think the Giants see? Is that a concern for them? What are your thoughts on this trade, Patricia?
I think for the New York Giants, I mean, you got to look at their passing game last year. Now, they just committed to Daniel Jones. And last year, the Giants were dead last in big play pass plays of 20 or plus yards. Darren Waller, the stats that I was able to pull up, he has had double digit big play pass receptions in every year except for last year. He was only in 9 games last year, so he only managed 9 big play pass plays, but otherwise he's had 14 in 2019, 16 in 2020, and 13 in 11 games in 2021. The Giants couldn't get a big play pass play last year if their life depended on it. So they look at Darren Waller. He's a big target. He's a good pass catching tight end. Now, if he is healthy, as you said, he can certainly provide an extra boost to that offense, which just really lagged a good playmaker. And, the fact that the receiver core, the receiver group in free agency. Very weak class, probably one of the weakest classes out there in recent years. So I think, the Giants going for another tight end made sense for them. We'll see if they address receiver in the draft. But, I like the move for the cost that's involved, for the risk that's involved, given the contract and the salary cap. I think it's a smart move. It's one of those low risk, high reward type of propositions for the Giants.
Yeah, to me, I think if you're the Giants, this is a deal you want to make. It's a deal you need to make. If it's the Raiders, I think you almost needed to move on a little bit. Picking up that third rounder is a big deal. So overall, I think this was good for both parties. I'm just curious, what's the reception in Gotham for getting Darren Waller?
Well, Joe Shane last year did so much with so little resources. He had a bad salary cap situation. This year, a little better salary cap situation. And I know, they got off to a slow start with free agency, but I think a lot of people like this particular trade. They think, again, they were missing a big play receiver. And even though Waller is a tight end, he is capable of making big plays. Now, if he is healthy, I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, he had a hamstring, which ended his season. So if he is healthy, if he comes in with the right attitude, and look, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, they are married at the hip, so to speak. So one guy doesn't make a move without the other guy knowing about it and being on board with it. So I have to think that they fully vetted the situation with Darren Waller. Obviously, the trade is contingent on him passing a physical. I'm sure they'll bring him in, they'll give him an orientation and whatnot. But sometimes, Hondo, a fresh start can go a long way and can really jumpstart a guy who maybe hits that wall, so to speak. And the Raiders, they've had so much change. They had Josh McDaniels come in, last year. And sometimes guys that were a big part of the future or thought to be a big part of the future, they kind of fall by the wayside when there's a change in leadership. So, it's a fresh start. It's a good opportunity for Waller. I think he's 30 or 31. I know he's his 30s. And like I said, it is a low risk, high reward proposition for the Giants.
Well, I know him and his parents. I think you guys are getting a tremendous guy in the community, a great locker room guy. Other than the frustration his teammates had with him about not playing, you're getting a good one there, Patricia. Listen, stay on the line. I want to talk to you. She's the best in Gotham. I'm telling you, ain't nobody better than Patricia Traina. She's with Giants Country and Locked On Giants podcast. She's the best. She's the queen of the Big Apple, and we're always pleased. Anytime we're talking anything, anytime I can come up with an excuse to talk to her, I'm bringing it up. The one and only, the great one. We'll be back.